Hi there, welcome back to Apatros Review. This episode, Coronaween 2 Part 2, and the film featured Hellraiser Revelations, Hellraiser 9. Directed by Victor Garcia in the year 2011. Hi there, welcome back to Apatros Review, your guide to the wild world of science fiction action horror cinema, and me, your host, Mila Zipka. If you want to spell me, just look at the channel name. Now in this episode we take a look at basically Part 2 of Coronaween 2. The second Halloween we've had that's pretty much being affected by coronavirus pandemic. And like last year, this year I pretty much get 4 of the scuzziest horror films I can find. I've already reviewed Monstrosity for part 1. And you'll wait till you see what the next ones will be. I got a little surprise coming as well. Now, in this episode, in part 2 of Coronaween 2, we take a look at Hellraiser Revelations, also known as Hellraiser 9. Cover. That's basically Pinhead in the toilets of hell, killing a bear. Now, this is a direct-to-video film, obviously, and it premiered in the US in Culver City of California in the 18th of March 2011, which was basically 3 days before I had my 26th birthday, and had its DVD premiere in the US and Brazil on the 18th of October 2011. It was directed by Victor Garcia and written by Gary J. Tunnicliffe, Tunnicliffe being the makeup effects guy. And by the way, Tunnicliffe also actually directed Hellraiser 10, Hellraiser Judgment, after this. And Pinhead in this film was actually played by Stephen Smith Collins. And the reason for that is because Doug Bradley, he didn't want to star in this film. He didn't like the script. Anyway. Now the DVD, I should point out, this is the Australian DVD from Real DVD. It's a pretty cheap release and no extras, no supplement. It's got 178 anamorphic ratio, widescreen, English 5.1 DTS, and English subtitles. Now, for us Aussies, this is pretty decently cheap, and the quality I can't complain about, but it's not a really good film anyway. Now, after a classic original, one good sequel, 2 reasonable ones, and a slew of direct-to-video sequels that range from passable to mediocre to bad to downright shit, we've reached the end of the road for the Hellraiser franchise so far, except for Hellraiser Judgment, but that film ain't available in Australia just yet. I will cover the first 5 Hellraiser films in the future, but for now, having done parts 6 through to 8, I will finish covering the shitty ones. Hellraiser Revelations is a somewhat difficult film to like, having effortlessly gained a formidable reputation as the very worst of the Hellraiser franchise thus far. While I have no hesitation calling this an atrocious misfire by Neo-Artologic Studio, and another of the catalogue of the now infamous Dimension Extreme subsidiary label, many have claimed that with its catalogue of incredibly bad films, the Extreme Dimension Extreme stands for extreme shit. If anything, this label has become the post-millennial equivalent of Crown International, a pre-millennial drive-in schlock studio that serviced the market of crap cinema from the 1960s to its end in 1990. Actually, the next film I'll review will be a Crown film. I will slightly differ from popular opinion by saying that this is not the very worst film in the franchise. While Revelations is on the same bottom of the barrel level as Hellraiser Hellworld, at least Revelations was meant to be a Hellraiser film, due to its specifically written script, and whereas Hellworld was a reject script that was originally not part of the franchise. And at least Revelations sticks to the proper lore of the Cenobites, despite feeling precisely like the result of The Asylum ever did a mockbuster remake of the Hellraiser franchise. And I'll take this over Hellworld any day, if I'm desperate enough to choose either one or two, that is. And it is surprisingly brisk at 73 minutes. Yeah, 1 hour, 13 minutes. That's how long it is. Very brisk. Now, Hellraiser Revelations is essentially a dirt cheap production. The budget consists of about, $300,000? That's cheap. Designed to be made purely to extend Dimension's tenure of the rights to the franchise. They stood to lose the rights if they didn't make a sequel in a certain time frame, and when this film was being made, and in the around 2010s, the studio was actually considering making a remake of Hellraiser, but they had problems keeping the rights if they didn't make a cheap sequel to keep the rights with them. So this kind of film is called Ashcan production. In fact, Hellraiser Judgment, the next film, Hellraiser film, was also an Ashcan production. And by the way, there is a Hellraiser remake being planned for 2022. Interesting. And Doug Bradley took one look at the script and bowed down on them. forcing the producers to recast series icon Pinhead with a newcomer actor and another voiceover duty, and filled with a group of essentially unlikable actors. Nobody in this film is anywhere near getting me to call their non-acting convincing, and a very badly written script, which is something of a surprise given makeup effects guru Gary J. Tunnicliffe actually wrote and directed a pretty decent film back in the 90s, within The Rock, that ended up being ripped off by Michael Bay, and Tunnicliffe even made a pretty decent short fan film sequel that wound up being included as an Easter egg on the Australian DVD Hellraiser Deader, and had an 11-day shoot to boot. This unholy abomination is the very definition of bargain basement, as everything in the film looks cheap. With the exception of the makeup effects, which are the only good thing in the film, we get some decent gore effects, often nothing spectacular, as Tunnicliffe is providing makeup effects for cheap. As for the story, this is basically a tale of two families who lost their sons to an ill-advised trip to Mexico, where they found a Lament Configuration in a Tijuana dive bar and summoned the Cenobites after one of them murdered a prostitute. 2 years later, the families have an anniversary dinner when one of the boys, surprise, returns. Looking like he's been through some seriously heavy shit, the family's cusp pull a disappearing act, the phone lines are royally fucked due to horror movie temporal distortion, and the Cenobites are on their way to claim the escaped boy, who seems to be not who he claims to be. To be honest, even though the dialogue is atrocious, and the actors make no attempt at filling their characters' shoes, at least the basic story, when stripped down to brass tacks, feels like a Hellraiser film should, and at least doesn't come with one of those within the Death Dream plots that some of the previous sequels used for their storylines. The story is also told with a blended timeline that switches back and forth between the families playing the present day and the boys' hellish vacation 2 years previously. And the boys actually also shot the Cenobites' appearance on their camcorder, which you'll see footage of in the beginning of the film. In fact, the film starts, it feels like a found footage film, but then it switches to regular thing after a few minutes. Now, there are times when Tunnicliffe, writing the script, adds something in the script that makes him think he's being clever, but only winds up insulting the viewer due to absent logic, like the inclusion of the definition of the word Cenobite in a household-grade dictionary. Although the definition of Cenobite being a member of a monastic order is technically true, it is too obscure outside the Hellraiser franchise to be deemed worthy to be included in such dictionaries. So, to be honest, your average household-grade dictionary is not going to have Cenobite in there. But, to be honest, the definition is true. It is, Cenobites are a member of a monastic order. Kind of interesting how Clive Barker came up with getting that word. Anyway. Now the twist ending, where one of the boys stole the other's skin in order to escape, at least relieves us of the unpleasant feeling we get when we see him seduce what we thought was his sister. Ugh. But the resolution at the end of the film is just plain wrong. So I would consider this as the second worst of the Hellraiser sequels, and stuck at the bottom of my grading line of a dreaded D- 1 out of 10 rating. It's a terrible film, but I wouldn't say it's the worst one of the bunch. Definitely Hellworld will be the one. Now for gore and nudity, some reasonable gore effects to be seen here, although not as gory as you'd like it to be. Only nudity is a pair of titties on an Asian hooker during a brief sex scene. Now for the DVD. Like the previous Neo Art and Logic Hellraisers, this was issued on Australian DVD by Real DVD, a company that has been the go-to label for Aussie-sourced Dimension Extreme titles. They also released the Pulse sequels a while back, for example. And those Pulse sequels are very hard to find. Like my copies of X Rentals. The picture was shot on video, but at least a decently clear, high-quality video, so you can't accuse this of looking like violent shit. The two English 5.1 tracks, one of which is a DTS, clearly a waste of effort for such a cheap film, are adequate, and the English subtitles are nice to have if you're deaf, hard of hearing, or one of those young horror fans that needs to watch this on family TV in the middle of the night without your parents knowing about it. Believe me, I was one of those horror fans myself. I had many late-night horror DVD viewing in the family room TV back in the early 2000s, and there are absolutely no supplemental features whatsoever. So Hellraiser Revelations, with its front cover picture of Pinhead taking really deep shit, definitely gets a D-, 1 out of 10. It's terrible. And there's no extras on the disc, so don't worry about trying to find a supplement. Okay. That's it for that one. Now, part 3 and 4 of Coronaween 2 will be coming in the coming days, and we'll see some interesting films there. You haven't seen the worst of it. Okay. Hope you guys are staying safe. Now, I did not do a request, but if you want to have a particular film in my collection, just hit me on the comment section. I'll answer. Also, if you have any questions about DVDs, I'll be happy to answer those as well. Okay, take it easy, guys. Relax, enjoy yourselves, and see ya.